On today's show, we got some big news for you. Kawhi Leonard making his return to Clipper practice. Just what could that mean for the Clippers? How close is he to a potential return? And then, unfortunately, I got to counter some good news with some bad news. Going to be talking about it all on today's Locked On Clippers.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You were locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. I'm your host, Darian Vaziri, born and raised in LA and in my 20th season as a Clipper fan. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Dime Dropper Pod and subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, for even more LA Clipper, LA sports, and NBA content. And Locked On Clippers is free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, where I want you to let me know what your reaction was to the news that Kawhi Leonard is practicing again. And we're going to be talking all about that in this episode. That is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the best place to get great deals last minute on tickets. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. And Locked On Clippers now has a newsletter, the Locked On Clippers daily newsletter, one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. It means a lot to me because I write it and spend time on it every single day. And speaking of this day, joining me, we have, coming back, the Clippers radio host and host of Clippers Talk on YouTube, the only person that seems to talk more Clippers basketball than me on the planet right now, Adam Auslund, or as your boy says it, Adam Auslund.
Bob Schmidt, the promo guy. I appreciate you having me on, Dime. I love this.
Absolutely. So let's just start with the most important news of the day. Kawhi Leonard returned to practice. Now, based on Joey Lynn, our beat writer's report, he said Kawhi Leonard practiced with the Clippers today. No contact work just yet, but went through some plays and defensive coverages, and he was back on the court. What is your reaction to that? Got to be a positive one.
I'm excited. I mean, we are looking at a guy that's 7 months removed from having that surgery back in May. So I'm not going to say it's totally unexpected. And when you look at the schedule, it kind of starts to lead you to believe that this would be the targeted landing spot for Kawhi coming back. These next couple of weeks, Dave McMenamin from ESPN came out and said as much. Basically, if there's no setback, he expects to be playing within the next couple of weeks for this Clippers team. So it's a sight for sore eyes for, I know, a lot of his teammates. Just seeing him there boost morale. It's big for Clipper Nation. It makes you feel like, wait a second, the championship expectations aren't done yet just because Paul George is gone. If Kawhi can get healthy with how good this team has been so far this season, they can do more than just make some noise in the playoffs. They can be a real threat in the West.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was very encouraged hearing this news. We talked about it on Clippers Talk, where this is another home and home kind of thing that we're doing here, which we've kind of made a regular thing. So we did do a first half on Clippers Talk, but let's just talk about it for the Locked On audience. Kawhi Leonard return date. What are you thinking? I've talked about the bobblehead night, but he's not actually doing contact work yet. So until we hear that news, he's doing contact work. He's doing 5-on-5. I wouldn't expect a return. I don't think it's going to be the bobblehead night on December 16th against Utah. When do you think he's going to come back?
Yeah, a game just 5 days from now, that seems like a little too soon. Could it be later that week when they're in Dallas or in Memphis? Maybe that's a possibility. It all depends on just how quickly he can start jumping through these hoops and checking these boxes and making sure that he's still 100%. Coach Lou did talk about how he still has a lot to do before he gets to that point. What does that mean exactly? He's also said he looked good today. So I just feel like there's within a range, maybe within a week from now, Kawhi Leonard could be looked upon as being back for this Clippers team. I would say sometime around then, it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility, at least in my point of view, that Kawhi Leonard could be returning. Because if those reports from Bill Simmons are true, that he has been ramping up, like that's one thing that they can hold him back at practice, right? It's another whatever training he does with his individual workout stuff behind the scenes. We don't know exactly how far along he has been for some time because Coach Lue said recently he didn't expect him to be out this long to begin with. So were they just being overly cautious? Was Kawhi not progressing as fast as they had hoped? Or did they see that, look, we want him back, and when he comes back, he has to stay back? And if you looked at the November schedule into early December, they were playing basketball games every other day and at times in consecutive days in a row. So would that have been the best time to bring back Kawhi Leonard? Doesn't feel like it. Now you get all these days off in December where you can get some actual practice time in to help that ramp up process. But it just feels like the runway is there for him to come back within the next 2 weeks, as long as something in terms of a setback doesn't happen for him.
Let me give an ode to our GOAT, Ralph Lawler. Kawhi Leonard plays in 2024. Haggle or no haggle on that one?
No haggle, because I said it last night. I truly believe that he'll be playing before the end of December, that there's enough runway, that there's enough time for him to ramp up and be back out there on the court. Now, what version of Kawhi Leonard will you be getting at that time? That's a different argument, but I think he will step on the court as long as there isn't something that happens between now and then. And what I'm talking about is he goes through some of these workouts. He goes through some of this checking the box stuff that Coach Lue was always talking about. And all of a sudden the knee swells up. That is worst case scenario. That's something we've been, cautioning people whenever we talk about Kawhi Leonard going back to April. That's a real possibility. You don't want to see it. So hopefully up until this point, what we found out is he is progressing well enough. He does look good. That hasn't been an issue. And maybe he's had even more extended time off to get this thing right, to make sure that this time around he's healthy for the playoffs. And the team has been able to do more than just tread water. They have absolutely done their part, being 14-11 so far, to scream and say, Kawhi, if we got you, we really have a chance this season. But we can hold down the fort for a little bit longer maybe. But there are some tough games coming up later in December I'm hoping he's back for.
Let me ask you a question, because I was going to go there next, but you kind of alluded to it already. We are 14-11 through 25 games. You asked me how I felt and how surprised I've been, but what have you thought about this team? The fact that we are 14-11 without Kawhi even playing a game. Have you been impressed?
Yeah, they've exceeded my expectations because while I thought the defense would be good, I didn't think they could be within top 5 range without Kawhi Leonard for a significant chunk of games. And right now, I'm putting it, if he comes back, he'll play 30, 35, 40 games at most. Before the season started, I was like, okay, if he can play 50 plus games, then they can be a top 6 seed. Now I feel like even if he plays 30, they have a chance at that with how good they've been on the defensive end and just how locked in they've been and how focused they've been each and every night. It speaks to Coach Lue. It speaks to Jeff Van Gundy, everything he's preaching, the new scheme that's out there. So you have a real floor with just how good they are defensively. And then shots come and go. And some nights they've been better than others. Some nights James Harden has been better than others. It's amazing to me that his efficiency can be this low and this team is still 14-11. I never would have seen that coming. You talked about on my show how Norman Powell has been the biggest surprise. And I agree with you because you don't typically see when the volume goes up, the efficiency tends to drop. So far, it hasn't for Norman Powell, and that's what's been so damn impressive. Outside the 3 games against the Houston Rockets, who have had his number and pretty much everyone else's so far this season, their defense is ranked second. Nobody's really slowed him down. Like, Norman Powell has been that good, and I thought you made a great point. Without James Harden that last game against Houston, it might have hurt him a little bit because he had to be forced to create a little bit more. But Norman Powell playing this well. Derrick Jones Jr., who they are going to be missing for a couple of weeks, at least it looks like. His shooting from the outside is held up so far. Chris Dunn's shooting hasn't, but his defensive effort and just being that reminder out there, Patrick Beverley type that, hey, the guys, this is how we play. I'm going to set the tone. This is how we have to play each and every possession out there. I think that crystallizes their identity and their DNA, and it just makes things easier for everybody else to have that reminder that, yes, this is Clippers brand of basketball now. This is what we do on the defensive end. And therefore, unlike some other teams that start off this season, the Clippers at least know how they want to play. Whether or not they can execute that each and every night at the highest level, that's a different thing. But the effort has been there for the most part all season long.
Absolutely. And it's funny, when you mentioned Kawhi might play, 35, 40 games. If you had said before the season Kawhi is going to play 40 games, are the Clippers making the play-in in this West? I would have said no. it's amazing that we are where we are. And I got to give a shout out to all the players and the coaching staff. It's been very impressive. And yes, I was sleeping a little bit if you want to go there. But I think a lot of Clipper fans are impressed with how it's gone so far as well. Now, I'm going to end it with this to end the first segment. There have been people that are saying, and I don't know how much I believe them, but they're like, this was all intentional. Like, this was our new strategy. Nothing's worked with Kawhi so far. We're going to be extra cautious, sit him out a whole chunk of the first half of the season, hope we can, tread above water, and then he's going to come back for like the last 40 games, but take the momentum into the playoffs. Do you think this was like an intentional thing? They've been extra cautious with it, knowing this could all happen? Or do you think it's just a matter of now's the time he's ready, and we've just so happened to be good without him, and that's it?
Well, I wouldn't fault them if they took a different strategy this time around or just thought, okay, we can hold down the fort, we can tread water until he gets back and be around 500. They've been even better than that. But Coach Lue came out and said that he thought he'd be back by now, or basically he didn't think he'd be without him for this long. So that kind of tells you that maybe things didn't go quite according to plan with how fast Kawhi was coming back. Coach Lue admitted there was a setback after Team USA, not necessarily during it, but right afterwards, where then they had to ramp back down, slow Kawhi down, start to rebuild again. It's hard to know because it's such a tricky injury with the swelling, that just how you handle it each and every day. You want to be overly cautious, and you do have to prioritize the playoffs, and you do have to figure out a way to get him to survive in a 7-game series and just play it all the way through, because we haven't seen that since the bubble back in 2020. So I'm fine with it if they are just being overly cautious to the point where, yes, we're going to wait till December. We're going to say, let's just say hypothetical. This is kind of wild, but the doctors say, hey, you can bring him back on this date. And the Clippers look at it and go, we're going to double that. We're going to be extra cautious because it's just been this way the last 4 years. And I think they're very understanding of how the fan base has felt about Kawhi Leonard and just how disappointing that last era was with him, with all these injuries popping up. So why not? James Harden is a tank. He's built for this. He's always been good of raising the guys around him and getting the most out of lesser squads. So they had the perfect guy to be able to help them get by without Kawhi Leonard. So it's possible that it is all part of some elaborate scheme, which to me is just, it's Kawhi Leonard. Like, he's injury prone. You do whatever it takes to just get him ready for the playoffs because he's such a killer then. So why wouldn't you wait till December if you have the luxury to, which right now it sure looks like it because they're 3 games over 500.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you gotten any comments about people saying like, we should sit before the season, like we should sit Kawhi out till the All-Star break and then just play him then? I'm just like, that's not going to work. But
then they're not making the playoffs.
If they had said Christmas though, then right now it would look pretty good. So interesting there. Coming up though, going to be talking about something on the little bit more negative side, sadly, an update on Derrick Jones Jr. I got to tell you a little something about FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. And this week for the NFL, Rams, Niners at Levi Stadium on Thursday. Rams are +2.5. You also got a little Los Angeles Chargers against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Chargers are -3 for that. And where can you go for all of that? FanDuel. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. I got to tell you a little something about Mint Mobile. With big wireless providers, what you see is never what you get. Somewhere between the store and your first month's bill, the price you thought you were paying magically skyrockets. With Mint Mobile, you'll never have to worry about gotchas ever again. When Mint Mobile says $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan, they mean it. Say bye-bye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected coverages. And the only reason why more people don't know about Mint is because they don't have a physical store. But Mint is also an official partner of Dime Dropper and also Locked On Clippers. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you with premium wireless plans starting at $15 a month. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts so you don't have to spend time plugging them all in and asking everybody for their number again. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/LockedOnNBA. That's mintmobile.com/LockedOnNBA. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/LockedOnNBA. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. All right, back here on Locked On Clippers with Clipper Radio host Adam Auslund to talk about Kawhi Leonard, of course, but now Derrick Jones Jr. Unfortunately, we heard that the hamstring out will keep him out for at least 2 weeks. He's going to be reevaluated in 2 weeks. Adam, what was your reaction when you heard that? Because Derrick has been so great for us this season, and we already are missing Terrence Mann. It's going to be tough. Who do you start? Because we don't have Kawhi back yet. Who are you starting in place?
I would consider it on a team-by-team basis, meaning on Friday night against the Denver Nuggets, I'd probably go with Nico Batum. I don't know if I always would, but I like Nico in that matchup just because he can switch on to Nikola Jokic at times, and Nico Batum is Mr. Reliable, and you're only replacing 10 points per game. As good as he has been from the outside, Derrick Jones Jr. shooting 42% from three so far, way above his career averages, even above where he was shooting it last season in the playoffs for the Dallas Mavericks. It's not like Nico can't do some of that 3-and-D stuff. He can't be the leaper that Derrick Jones Jr. is. You lose a guy on some of those runouts and those hit-aheads where you get some easy ones. And I do have a level of concern because it's a hamstring injury for a quick, fast-twitch guy like Derrick Jones Jr. and how long it's going to take him to recover because he's out at least 2 weeks right now. But I'd probably go case-by-case basis depending on the opponent, and I start with Nico Batum Friday night against Denver. But if you need more offense, you go to Amir Coffey. It's just he's a little bit smaller out there. And I like the thought of Nico all of a sudden playing 30 minutes or around there just for a 2-week period. He did this for France this summer. Now, you could make the argument, okay, so he's probably already worn out from that, but he hasn't been playing heavy minutes or been taxed too much as a member of the Los Angeles Clippers since he came back this time around. I think he's ready for something like this, where he could ramp up the minutes just for a couple of weeks and get closer to 28 or 30 per game, because it's still all there with Nico Batum. I know some people have been saying, he's washed. I'm a little bit disappointed in Nico so far this season. I mean, he just had that game where he had 4 three-pointers against the Minnesota Timberwolves in a game where they lost by 1 just a couple of weeks or a week and a half ago. Like, Nico still looks very good, and this was somebody this summer that was guarding SGA and Dennis Schroeder. So you have just more versatility, more of a veteran presence there, and stability for this Clippers team that I think they need that in the starting lineup. But I wouldn't hate it if Amir Coffey's out there as well. But against Denver, I'm going Nico Friday.
All those points were valid. The Nico, as we've seen, and you mentioned it on Clippers Talk, switching on a Jokic and not getting completely abused is something that's been positive for us and something that's worked a little bit in some of those matchups against them in previous years. Here's the thing with Nico. He did have that game against the Timberwolves, but since that game, he is 1 for 7 from the field. He hasn't played 30 minutes in any game this season. His highest minutes game was actually the last game against Houston, where he played 26. What do you think about that? Do you think Ty just doesn't trust him to play it anymore? Or do you think he's just far down the pecking order when everybody's, or not even everybody, but everyone but Kawhi is healthy? Because there was a game against Houston in Houston, the second one we got blown out. He played 4 minutes. The game against the Minnesota Timberwolves the other day, he played 8 minutes. The win at Philly, he got 10. So there's been some games where he's literally barely played. What do you think of that?
I think there's been an effort to preserve him till the playoffs, till you get to bigger games, and then you unleash Nico Batum and give him more minutes. Because as much as people have talked about all summer long with the Clippers, they got to get that power forward. They got to get that 4. Well, they've been a very good rebounding team so far, and they didn't get that guy. And the one guy they do have to play in those instances in a 7-game series at the 4, where you could bump Kawhi back to play in the 3, is Nico Batum. He's still very capable of doing that. I think he's kind of a secret weapon for this team where they're not trying to overtax him, but this just might be a moment for a couple of weeks where they need more out of him. I think he can still do it. He averaged 30 minutes per game for France this past summer. He led them in minutes total on a team with Wemby and a bunch of young guys, and Nico was still the guy that was used most often. So I'm just not that concerned, even though he is turning 36 in a couple of days from now, that he can't maintain, I don't know, how about 28 minutes per game over a 2-week span where the Clippers I don't think they have a back-to-back the rest of December. Their next 5 games, none of them take place within a back-to-back. They do have a couple of days off after the Denver game. The schedule is getting a little bit lighter right now. It favors an older guy like him being able to play a little bit more because you get some breaks in between. I think there's a real opportunity here.
There's one last back-to-back, and it's December 30th and 31st. But besides that, we don't have any. It's at New Orleans the first night, and then the next night at San Antonio.
DJ could be back by then. DJ could be back by then.
And I would be happy if Nico Batum is used more, and hopefully he improves his play, but also just improves his role gets increased, and maybe he'll start to find his shot a little bit more again, because his 3-ball just hasn't been as good so far this season as it has been in previous seasons, which, you can maybe point that to. He's not in as much. He's not getting as many shots up, but we'll see. I'm interested to see what Ty does. But let me ask you this. Let's say we don't have Derrick, we don't have Terrence, we still don't have Kawhi. Assuming that Ty still wants to play a 10-man rotation, or maybe you can go 9-man rotation. Besides Harden, Zoo, Chris Dunn, Norm, and Amir, and Nico, since you mentioned him just now, who are the other guys you're including in that rotation in these next 2 weeks or so?
Well, I don't think KPJ is going anywhere, because I think this is somebody that Coach Lou views as a project, somebody that he can get more out of, maybe something he can prove where others couldn't with Kevin Porter Jr., with just getting a more consistent, higher basketball IQ player out of him. I think he's going to continue to play. We talked a little bit about it on our show, Clippers Talk, but he's a bigger, stronger, more capable defender and rebounder than Bones Highland. And Bones has been in the doghouse, even if it wasn't just for the physical attributes. For whatever reason, Bones has been in the doghouse going back to him and PJ being sent home right after they weren't traded last season. So I think KPJ is solidified in the rotation right now. I don't think he's going anywhere. And it just always feels like, even when he has those down moments, it's just a roller coaster with him. He eventually goes through a hot streak, and he makes you think, if we could just get a little more out of this guy, he's still young enough. He has so much potential. That could make a world of difference for a Clippers team that is in desperate need of what he brings, because he is Harden light in some ways. And I mean very, very light, because James Harden's a top 75 player of all time. And it's not just the fact that he's a lefty. It's the fact that he can go ISO. He can create and initiate on the offensive end. So I'm counting KPJ in. I'm counting Jordan Miller in, who got more minutes after Terrence Mann went out, got more minutes the other night. I felt like he should have gotten the basketball more against the Houston Rockets, and they need what he supplies. He gets downhill. He gets easy buckets. He gets shots up that I don't know if anybody else can do it in the way that he does. So that's a very interesting player. It's not often, I said this before, it's not often you have a guy that can get better and develop and progress as a young player who's not that young. He's turning 25 in January, and he can also help you win at the same time. That's the best of both worlds. You have to use him. You have to exploit him. And then I think Mo Bamba's going to get run, because I think he's been all right so far this season. I know you called him, a Fugazi 3 and stretch 5 guy.
So far, the percentages are saying that, but it's still early. But I still have agreed that he's been positive, and I do agree with the 9 that you listed. Do you put a 10th man in there, or do you just keep it at 9?
I'd probably keep it at 9, because some of those guys are young enough where you can play them heavier minutes, like the 2 I just mentioned with KPJ and Jordan Miller. I'm just not that worried about it.
Yeah. And I don't think Chris Dunn will be, not okay with playing more minutes. He's ready to give us more. So coming up, though, going to be looking at the Denver game on Friday. And it wasn't just Derrick Jones Jr. that was out. How about some of the other guys that were out? They're going to be back. Going to be talking about that coming up. I got to tell you a little something about Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. I used it for the NLCS Game 1, and I got a pretty solid deal last minute. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And Game Time Picks makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, and theater. Just take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, back here with Clipper Radio host Adam Auslund to talk about Kawhi Leonard practicing again and Derrick Jones Jr. being out for 2 weeks. But we've got a game on Friday, and it's really nice that we get some of this rest this week before that game. I mean, the last two periods in between the games we played have been such a relief due to the torturous schedule we were playing in terms of one game after the next, one day off for so long. We got the Denver Nuggets, though, on Friday, and we are 2-0 against them so far this season, Adam. As far as James Harden and Amir Coffey, got any updates on them, given their status? They didn't play the other day.
So both of them participated in practice, as did Mo Bamba, who was out the last game, too, with basically load management on his knee swelling that he had going back to last season with the Philadelphia 76ers. So I expect all three of those guys to be ready to go. Chris Dunn was also dealing with an illness the other night against the Houston Rockets. He was questionable heading into that game. So there's four guys right there that are healthy again. And by the way, Amir Coffey going out right before the game started with that shoulder contusion from the layup line was just everything was going against the Clippers there, but they should be back for Friday.
Awesome. Okay, so starting lineup on Friday, let's go. You're going Nico, James Harden, Norm, Chris Dunn, and Zoo?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think Ty's going to go with Nico over Amir, though?
Amir started the 6 games that Norman Powell was out, but I'm trying to think how many times he started him at the 4. I just like the matchup with Nico against Denver. He has had good moments against Denver.
Do you start Nico on the Joker and have Zoo guarding Christian Brown?
I could see that a little bit, and they could play some of that sandwich game against the Joker like the Lakers have done in the past with Rui Hachimura and Anthony Davis behind him. In this case, it would be Nico and Ivica Zubac. Or
maybe you can do Zoo on a Gordon and then Harden on Brown, which is probably more likely what they're going to do.
Yeah, I could see that. It's just you have options with Nico going up against Denver, and that's what excites me about that matchup.
And MPJ's been so good this season, having someone like Nico who's got some of that crazy length and that wingspan that can potentially – few guys can actually affect MPJ when he's shooting jumpers, but Nico might be able to a little bit.
Yeah, I've seen Nico Batum still show off the hops with rear view contests and blocks that go off the backboard. It's still there. I know he's turning 36. He's a little bit older. Nico's one of those guys, Sneeko, they call him, for a reason, because he's able to pick his spots when he wants to show off that he still has enough athleticism out there to be a versatile wing.
Yeah, and my last question, how do you feel about the Nuggets so far this season? I mean, they have not even just like the way they match up with the Clippers, but just in general as a competitor down the line, because they have our old friend Russell Westbrook. They have our old friend DeAndre Jordan. It's been a weird season for Murray, as you mentioned on, I don't remember if it was Clippers Talk or this episode. What do you think about them so far this season?
I think Jokic is a monster, and he's putting a lot on his shoulders right now because he's capable. But I don't think it's sustainable or a winning formula in the playoffs with Jokic just having to do everything. It doesn't look like Jamal Murray is the same guy right now. We talk about knee injuries. This is someone who did his ACL, came back, they won the championship, but the burst isn't there. Like, he doesn't get the same separation. And when smaller guards lose that burst, we've seen it with Dame at times, although he's having kind of a renaissance year right now, but like, it can go quickly with them. And I hope he gets it back because he is one of my favorite players to watch, but they're not the same team. They've lost good veterans. They lost Bruce Brown, I should say. Bruce Bowen. I'm going back a little ways here. Not that good of a defender, but a solid wing and a 3-point shooter. And then last season, KCP. And it just seems like their foundation has been chipped away at over the years where they're not peak Denver Nuggets anymore. And people have complained within the fan base that we're not spending money. We're not doing what it takes. Trade Jokic if you're going to let one of the greatest players of all time, squabble with this team when you're not committed to winning. But I still think they are a top 2 threat in the West to the Clippers, along with the OKC Thunder in a 7-game series. Just because if you have Jokic, even if Jamal Murray is only 75% of what he used to be, you still have a chance. Like, they should have made the Western Conference last season. They lost in Game 7 at home where they led by 20 over the Minnesota Timberwolves. Jokic is someone that can carry, but ultimately, either Jamal Murray is going to have to rewind the clock a little bit, or Michael Porter Jr. is going to have to take even a bigger leap forward. Christian Brown has been really good for them so far this season, by the way. You look at the numbers, but the impact hasn't been there. Their defense has slipped pretty significantly. Their offense is right about where it's been, but defensively they're much different, and they're trying to play at this faster pace because they have Russ, and that was all the talk coming into the offseason. Hey, we're playing at a faster tempo now. We're trying to get the ball up the court a little bit faster. Offensively, they're fine, but defensively, they don't look as committed on that end, and I think Mike Malone's about to blow a gasket if they have another bad loss like they did to the Washington Wizards recently.
Yeah. Last question. What do you think about Russ though so far in his role? It's the first place he's gone to where he knew he was coming off the bench.
I mean, he's been good feeding Jokic as of late. A lot of those assists are from Russell Westbrook just finding him over and over again. And if you want to talk about the ability to spam, and Doc Rivers used to always say, feed the pig. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Just keep going to that guy. And Jokic is putting up monster numbers. And a lot of that is because Russ has been setting him up. It started off extremely rough where he was shooting like 20% from the field the first couple of weeks of the season. But slowly but surely, he's gotten a little bit better. I just think ultimately Russell Westbrook is a ceiling lowerer. I've always felt like that about him because of his erratic play, because I think you have to be more disciplined and methodical in those big playoff moments when you value possessions. And Russ has never been that guy. He plays his best within chaos. And in the playoffs, the game is going to slow down. So while there are times this season where they look really good playing a little bit faster and Russell Westbrook works, there's been other times where it looks like a disaster out there. It's just the Russ roller coaster. It's what it's always been.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it works out for him in the playoffs this year. I still feel like the Nuggets are going to make it, but
oh yeah,
it'll be a fun one on Friday. Adam, let the people know where they can find you. This has always been a great time. About an hour of Clipper content on both channels if you combine them. So always a pleasure, and it's nice that I don't have to talk as much.
Is that a nice way of saying I'm talking way too much right now? I get excited when I come on Locked On Clips. Come on, Darian, you know me.
No, I need to talk. It's nice because I'm always on here 30 minutes consecutively, and it's different for Locked On than live. It's live, I can pause a little bit, I can check some stats, I can interact with the chat, but when I'm doing it on Locked On, it's like I don't want my listeners to be bored or like too much dead silence. So I just got to think of stuff to say. So it's nice to get to lay back and think of my what I'm going to say next a little bit too. It's a little easier in that regard.
I got you. I know the solo grind very well. I'm at Follow Adam A on X, on Twitter. I'm not on Bluesky yet. If everybody goes there, I will go there. But I'm trying to be on less social media platforms. So.
That's why I'm not on it. That's because everyone's saying do it. I'm just like, I need to be on my phone less.
Yeah, man. I've been talking basketball in there since 2009. I don't know why everybody wants to flee every 4 years from that app, one side or the other. Maybe I do know why, but I feel like they'll be back. If everybody leaves, I'm going with them. But for now, Ricky G is there. I'm staying there. You're there. That's where I interact with people and talk basketball. And also, of course, at Clippers Talk is where you can find me on the YouTube side now, where Darian came on with me last night.
Yes, thanks, Adam. And of course, Locked On Clippers, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you comment on the video. Let us know what you thought, how you feeling about the Kawhi news, the Derrick news. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Dime Dropper Pod. You can subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, for even more LA Clipper, NBA, and LA sports content. And Locked On Clippers newsletter. Your boy writes it. One stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at lockedondaily.com. It'd be really appreciated if you do. Thank you all. The age-old proverb continues. Go Clippers.